Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Everyday Equity, Everyday Ways to Make a Change. My name is Pooja Kothari, your host and founder of Boundless Awareness. With me today is a guest that I have been really excited to speak to. We have so much to learn from each other, but we have a ridiculous amount in common. So I can't wait to get to this today's conversation. With me today is Naseem Kapdi, the founder of Kimia Coaching. Um, Naseem is a delight to speak with, and I want to pass it over to you, Naseem, to introduce yourself, introduce Kimia Coaching, and then we can get started on this really great, exciting conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pooja. I'm so excited to be here with you. Finally, it feels like there's a lot of behind the scenes happening to make this happen.
Absolutely.
Um, Excited to be here and to share with all of you watching. As Pooja mentioned, my name's Naseem, pronouns she, her, hers. I identify as an introvert, daughter of immigrants, eldest daughter, I will plug that. Um, First gen college, and a child of a double diaspora, which I think we're going to get into a little bit more as we carve into identity. And I'm also the founder and coach behind Kimia Coaching. I work with BIPOC professionals and creatives, especially those that identify for second gen college grads, immigrants or children of immigrants who are navigating big questions in their careers and creativity as well.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Um, I want to talk about how, your personal experiences that brought you to Kimia Coaching, your journey, and kind of like what motivates you. So, our first question is, what personal experience or moments sparked your commitment to creating positive social change in your community through Kimia Coaching and probably numerous other things? Whatever you want to touch on, I'd love to know.
Yeah, I love that question. I think that, looking back on my career, like it doesn't seem like a straightforward path to where I am, but I did start my career in education. I think, when you are asked the question as a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? I run the gamut of like, oh, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be an artist, or, an author or whatever, right? But I think that for me, very early on, I wanted to be a teacher.
Hmm.
And I didn't necessarily understand it at the time, but as I got older and learned more and had language, it became a thing around representation. And I know representation has been overused, misused, whatever you want to call it. But for me, growing up, um, I felt like the people around me didn't look like me. So I felt like I didn't have that like visual of like, hey, this teacher comes from my background, or like, is someone I can talk to that maybe understands. And even if I wasn't the same race or background as somebody else, I feel like just being a woman of color in that space was hopefully enough, for my students and to give back in a way that my younger self wanted. So I carry that with me in kind of all my different career kind of curves and all of that. So I taught English as a second language. Um, and then I eventually made the decision for a lot of different reasons to go to pastry school. And thought I would restart my career, in the food industry. That somehow opened the door to nonprofit. So I ended up at a nonprofit that was seeking an ESL teacher with a food background. And I thought, this can't be, like this can't be happening. This can't be true. So that led me into nonprofit, and I was there, and then I went into another nonprofit, before eventually kind of stepping back without a plan, and leaving my last nonprofit role and kind of trying to figuring out kind of realigning with my mission, realigning with what's important to me and what I want to do next. And that's where kind of the seeds of Kimia Coaching were kind of planted. And I was able to join a coaching program that was designed for women of color to support other women of color and other BIPOC more broadly. And that was my sign. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And while the path feels kind of like disjointed, I feel like the thread of representation is kind of in all of the things that I've done. And also just, again, giving back, like that service of giving back, that act of service of giving back to the community in some way.
Yeah. So when you were little and people were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? You literally did all the things.
I did. It ran the gamut from like photographer, author, vet, like all the things.
Yeah, why not? Pastry chef too. Um, I want to get into how Camilla coaching and your like. I want to get into the phrase that you used, double diaspora. But my goal is to link the double diaspora understanding with what you bring into Camilla coaching. So first, let's break down what you mean by double diaspora, if you don't mind giving a little background as to your family's history and your own lived experiences.
Yeah, no, I mean, for a long time, I mean, I'm sure many of you have heard the word diaspora, right? Like that's a common term. Most people understand it's a migration, immigration kind of a thing. And for a long time, I didn't feel like it matched my experience. Like I understood what it was, but I didn't feel like it matched my experience. So to take a step back, my family originally were from India. So my grandparents were born and raised in India, and they immigrated to Africa. So my father's side immigrated to Central Africa, and my mother's side immigrated to East Africa. So my parents were born and raised in Africa. And so that added a layer to their experience. And then they eventually immigrated to the US, where I was born. And so like having that double, right? Like India to Africa, Africa to the United States is what I call the double diaspora, which I didn't understand as a child and didn't have the words for. You know, I already was feeling like I didn't belong where I was, you know, as a child. You know, I didn't wear hijab as a, you know, as a young child. I wore it later on. But my skin color identified me as other, and I already was feeling othered and not fitting in like quote unquote American culture. But then when I was finding spaces where there were people that looked like me, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you know, like other areas where we look like this or similar, I wasn't feeling like I was enough there either. So it was like an interesting dynamic. I already wasn't fitting into the box. And I remember college applications, and they would always force you to pick like one box. What's your race? What's your ethnicity? And I'm like, but this doesn't tell my story.
Yeah. Yeah. And your name, or like our names, are
Yes.
like the massive indicator. Like our accents can be one thing, but as soon as we say your name, it's like over the phone, you're othered. You
Yes.
know, it's doesn't have to actually even be in person. It's like a signal. And you know, I remember when my wife and I were naming our kids, you know, growing up, it was like, how do you spell your name? How do you pronounce it? And all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's hard to go like that, but I would never give up my name to have an easier, more assimilated experience. And so we named our kids, you know, very, very typical Indian names that everybody mispronounces. And I was like, I'm not going to shy away from this. I am not going to do the colonizer's work on my own kids. We're going to keep our culture, and they'll figure it out like I figured it out. And it'll be really the least of their problems, because at least culturally, you know, our names are just so significant with our culture.
They are.
Our religion, our culture, everything, all of that, our community. So, but yeah, and it's I guess you can go either way on that. Like if you grow up with everyone mispronouncing your name or not knowing how to say either your first or your last name, you could really shy away from that. So, okay, so we have three continents, two
Yeah.
oceans, and when you think about, let's say, you growing up here, what was your experience in not only being kind of like in a white majority space, but
Hmm.
also with the community that your parents, worked hard to build, a similarly situated community. And can you talk a little bit about how your identity was shaped, but also affected for better or worse by our community members?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of assimilation happening as a kid, assimilation that I didn't understand. And I didn't know what I was working towards because of like this double identity or coming from this double diaspora. I grew up in Queens. So I was around a lot of different cultures and races and all of that. But then when we moved to the suburbs, it was completely different. Where like again, back to that education piece and wanting to be a teacher, nobody looked like me. It was very rare. And like at the time that we had moved to the suburbs, we were one of the first families, of color in the neighborhoods. So like there were other families of color and from different places, but like in elementary school in particular, there weren't that many. And so I didn't understand where I fit in, and there was this like need to assimilate or acclimate, and I didn't understand this at the time. No matter what you did, you would never fit in,
Yeah.
right? So like I feel like everyone goes through, or everyone who's had a similar experience as me has probably had the lunchbox excuse me, the lunch thing, right? Where your mom or your parent, your caretaker, whoever sends you with lunch,
Mhm.
and it's not the norm. It's not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's something else. Maybe it's a kebab in a bread sandwich, or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it smells. It's the spices. It's the curry. It's something, right?
It's
And
wonderful
we've all
aromas. Yes.
yes, but then you begin to question because others are like, your peers have not been exposed to it in a similar way, that where I feel like now I think it's a little bit different, of like, more people being exposed to different cultures and foods and everything. Especially, I mean, I live in New York. We're surrounded by a lot of different things. Um, but like that moment of like, okay, well, I rejecting, right? Rejecting that. I don't want that. I don't want this. I don't want that. And I can only imagine how my mom felt of like, oh God,
Yeah.
what do I have? What do I do now? Like I have to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I was a child, I'm going to date myself, of like the 90s. And like, there were like these Lunchables and other kinds of like,
Yes.
American, accepted things, and those are the things that I wanted because I wanted to fit in. But even as I was trying to fit in there, I think it wasn't until like middle school where I started, because we had a few elementary schools feed into one middle school. That's when I started to be around more folks that looked like me, at least. So like
Mm.
either from India or Pakistan, mostly Pakistan or India, but maybe some pockets of other countries in Southeast Asia. And I thought, okay, these are my people. Like it's fine. Like like I'll just gravitate here and I'll be accepted. And even there, because of the double diaspora, like I didn't completely fit in. There was the language. There were like little things with like foods that like my parents and their families had adopted because of where they lived and access, right? There were little things there that were in my family that weren't in their families. And so like I felt like further and further apart from them instead of like finding like my people or my community.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just because we're all brown doesn't mean we share any of those similar characteristics, and we can even alienate each other by saying, in these micro pockets where, okay, there's literally 4 of us in the whole school.
Yes.
And like, we're focusing on our differences. Like, we just like feel some belonging. I mean, it's the nature, I suppose, of childhood and like, you know, you know, getting along with each other and learning about each other. But yeah, it's a really similar experience that I also had. And we were talking right before we went on and about even if you threw away your roti and dal or your khichdi or your kebab, uh, you don't suddenly just belong.
Yes.
Like, oh, okay, oh, you don't know this food? Okay, I'll never bring it again. The only person that lost anything was us by making that choice, because it's not like suddenly we were part of the in crowd.
No.
Because we
No.
forsaked our own cultural food,
Yes.
and honestly, like the tastiest dishes in the world.
I know. But even
for
when
a
you
grilled
are
cheese.
accepted, yeah, but even when you are, or like it becomes the norm, you lose something there. I think we were talking about this earlier. I love mehndi. I love getting it done. I love the smell of it. I love all of it. All the things about it I love. And I would get it growing up. And then there were pockets of moments where I was like, no, like I get made fun of, like I don't want to do it. And then of course there were these like big music superstars at the time who were starting to, have mehndi in their music videos, or, other elements of like Indian culture, or like tied to Hindu, religion specifically, or whatever. Right. And like they were making it more quote unquote popular or normalizing it, but it was an appropriation. Right. But then there were moments where I remember in high school, like, oh, like it turned from what is that on your hand to, oh my God, you have henna? Like, where did you get it done? And it was like, what? Like all of a sudden you flip that switch, and it's jarring. I think that was the word I used. It's very strange.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, like the Madonna and the Gwen Stefani's, like it was like for the goal was to really exoticize. Like, no one's done this before. I'm going to wear a bindi on stage, and people are going to be like, "What's that?" It was for the, what do you call that? Like the pop factor, the wow factor, and
to differentiate, but like
right.
in not the right way, and not honoring like what you're taking. Like I don't know if you saw this. I mean, a recent example is Prada came out with these sandals that are like basically sandals people in India wear. They're like the leather sandals with like the toe piece.
Oh my God.
And like they didn't admit.
I make fun of my dad. That my dad has those chappals, and I'm like, what are we?
Like everyone, my grandfather had them, like he wore them every day, even here, and like, and here they are not admitting to it and making it seem like it's this new trend or new trendy thing, and meanwhile it's existed for who knows how many years back in India, but like back in that area, and here you are trying to take it. I mean, there was also this thing on social media, I think it was either last summer or the summer before, where it was like a Norwegian trend. So like these women from Norway, or like where people were copying this thing where they were putting a dupatta, which is a scarf, on like their outfits, like they're wearing it to a wedding or whatever. And I'm like, you mean a dupatta on a shalwar kameez? Like, it's like, what? I was just like, this has been in existence forever. And all of a sudden somebody, a white person is wearing it, and now it's trendy.
Yeah. Yeah. It really dilutes our, it just makes it feel like very, well, the sense of injustice is high, I feel. Yes. Because the benefits from that don't, it's not like we're, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm the colonizer, but like legitimize is the word that's coming to my mind, but that's not what I want to say. But we didn't receive that benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But like we didn't have, it wasn't validated when we did it. as like people
Yeah.
belonging to that culture or people of color who understand where it comes from or what it's tied to.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That goes for yoga, and also, people telling me what namaste means when I say it's not namaste, it's namaste, and you're not using it right. And then people explain back to me what's the right meaning, and I'm like, I cannot believe I'm in this conversation right now. Um, yeah, it's. I mean, all we can do is kind of like chuckle at it, but I think um, the reality is that you and I and all of us in this diaspora and double diasporic and even more community um, have to work so hard at building up our own identity and being okay with it, while everybody is like, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, or like,
Yeah.
do you're not fluent in your language, like, it's like the faces that people make. And it's like consistent delegitimizing. You're not as, brown as you should be.
Yeah.
Why is that? What happened? How come you don't speak Spanish? How come you don't speak Hindi? How come you don't speak Urdu? So can you tell me about any experiences you've had where, you know, from either like the white majority that you may have been in school with, or even our aunties and uncles in our own communities, and how we can take away, but also think more about building each other up, especially this
Yeah.
next generation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the thing about language, and I come from a language background and I appreciate different languages. And I would love to learn every language, you know. But it's like just understanding that there are just so many languages. I mean, just you take India on its own, like depending on what part of India, there are just so many pockets of languages. Some are nationally recognized, some are like, smaller dialects, but they exist, right? And like you can't treat things just like you can't treat like races or cult or like anything like that as like a monolith, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't do that with language either. So I grew up, I ended up learning Konkani, which is a dialect of Marathi, and I say Marathi because that's more of a known language and it's recognized, but Konkani is not as known. So I already had that. There's like
Yeah.
little things about around the language and the culture associated with people who speak that language, that has already put
Yeah.
me in this like niche almost, over here. And I don't speak it fluently, although I'm pretty good at it because of my nani. My grandmother lived with us, both my maternal parents on and off. Um, and she didn't, I think she didn't feel comfortable speaking English. I think she understood a lot of it, but I don't think she felt comfortable. So if I wanted to communicate with her and she lived with us and she helped to take care of us, I remember she would pick us up from walk to the elementary school to pick my brother and I up, on occasions. Like if I wanted to communicate with her, I had to, speak this language. But then at the same time, that meant because of the way I look, people assume, okay, you must speak Urdu
Hmm.
because you're also a Muslim, right? I'm visibly Muslim. I wear a hijab. So it's like, okay, you must be from Pakistan. You must speak Urdu. And like on the flip side, with the aunties or uncles or community, it's like, well, why don't you speak Urdu? Why is your Urdu so terrible? And I do understand more of it than like I can like speak, but like the assumption of that, it's like, well, I didn't grow up speaking Urdu. That was not my language. That's not where
Right.
I'm from, So like, I don't know what to tell you. Why, you're making these assumptions and, making these comments, and it's like, but that doesn't honor my identity. It honors what you assume of my identity, but you didn't even step back to ask, because again, we're not a monolith, and there's so many languages and other factors that like define who I am.
It's so funny because it's like if people when people ask about our specific identities and our histories, it is such a rich narrative that we can tell. But when they assume like, okay, I'm going to put you with this group of people, so why don't you speak that language? It's like
Right.
nonsensical. Like, have you not been listening? I'm not from there. Why would
Yeah.
I know that language? Do you know Ukrainian? I mean, like, what? But there's no like equal type of thing because of white supremacy, of course. So we are the ones who are othered, and we are the ones who don't belong. And especially if we don't fit into like what they have in their mind's eye, then we doubly don't belong.
Right. Right. All of that. Yeah. But it also like it takes a long time to unpack that. As some as like I feel like I'm still unpacking a lot of that, and even today, making sense of like what I experienced, especially like being in I guess it's called a third space, or being in
Mm-hmm.
spaces that are designed
Mm-hmm.
for specific groups of people, or whatever you want to call it. And that comes up in my coaching too. And like it's interesting because as I work with like also second gen, and like other, other folks of like this diaspora, it comes up and I see the common threads, and I'm like, wait, we're like in another generation and the same thing is still kind of coming up. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting, and like I feel like not a lot of people talk about it. And I don't remember when I started to refer of my experience or my background as a double diaspora, but that changed a lot. Like, I think I shared with you, like, I try to come from a place of curiosity. And like, for me, it's like if someone's sharing something that, like a double diaspora, I'm like, oh, what is that? Like my ears perk up and my mind starts kind of like firing, and I'm like, oh, like that's super interesting. Tell me more, because I want to learn, right? Like I think we have so much wisdom within us as individuals, and then collective wisdom, from who we are, and where we came from, to offer each other, that like I want to learn, and that I take that into how I lead and how I coach and how I navigate just the world around me.
Yeah. I mean, this is why it's so valuable for your clients, especially like femme clients of color, you know, all Black, Indigenous people of color. And, I love this testimonial that one of your clients gave you, because I feel it also in our interview when they said, I finally feel like I can hear myself again. That is so powerful. And it's only because of what you bring to the table and that deep understanding of belonging and equity that somebody can say that they can hear themselves outside all of this noise that we're like tunneling through on a daily basis, that is chipping away at our who we are and our identities. And to be able to hear your own voice is what a gift that you can give your clients.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
phenomenal.
it's it's interesting because I also hear my own voice through my clients, because like some of the things they name or that they just share with me, I didn't maybe have language for before. And here they are sharing it. And I'm
Mm,
like, your light bulb
yeah.
goes off and you're like, oh, was that? Yes, that was what I was experiencing at that time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
unpacking and unlearning, sometimes I wish I could like move past it. Like, I'm like, can we just go to the healing and just be in a healing state? But like, I think that's part of what I'm coming to realize, is all of that is also part of the healing. Like, as we've chipped away parts, or let me use I statements, as I've chipped away or of like parts of me,
Mhm.
over the years, especially as a child, like it's like bringing it back. I think in Japanese culture, I always think of this image, when a piece of like a dish or a glass breaks, when they bring it together, they seal it with gold, or they like bring it together with gold. So making something new again. So it's not like hiding the crack, but like it's beautiful if you look up pictures and whatever,
Oh,
like you don't think of it as like, oh, it's broken or whatever, but you see like the care that someone brought something like pieces back together. And they use gold, which is this element that we put like high up there, and I always think of that image when I'm like bringing myself back together again, or piecing the version of me that I wish I had, you know?
Well, this is very emotional and very deep for me. It's such a beautiful sentiment. And that's how we should think of ourselves, is that we are even more valuable after the quote unquote break. Oh, it's amazing. Um, in the time that we have left, I want to talk. I'm going to put this up here so that people can go to your website and sign up for your newsletter. And of course, connect with us on LinkedIn. It's so fast and it's easy, and then we can always stay in touch.
Yes.
But one snippet of advice that you could leave our listeners with. I really like what we talked about. I'm very interested in what the chai method is.
Oh yeah, that's something I developed recently because I took a step back and I thought about how I coach and what I bring for my clients, what kind of space I want to hold for them. And so I love chai. I love anything to do with chai, a good cup of chai.
Love it.
So rooting it in a chai, CHAI method, I thought felt right. And so chai stands for, the C is clarify what you want. The H is heal what's been holding you back. A is align with your values, and the I is integrate real lasting change. So I hope to bring that. That's my approach to my coaching, and I hope to bring that to my clients so that they can do what they need to do to get to where they want to go. Often they're feeling either stuck or trying to navigate things. A lot of it is outside of our control because we're navigating systems that weren't designed for us on so many different levels. Like you keep peeling off that onion, right? And finding all the ways that these systems weren't designed for us. So that's what I hope to bring to clients to help them again as they navigate these things and get to their desired outcomes or goals.
Amazing. I mean, it's like amazing intentionality that you bring to not only, of course, this conversation, which is like right in your backyard, but like to your clients. And that intentionality, that is meant for real long lasting change. So if you're listening, click on Chai Convos to join the e-newsletter at kimiacoaching.wordpress.com. Connect with Naseem on LinkedIn and connect with me. Come on, if you haven't connected, let's go. Naseem Kapdi, it's been so wonderful speaking with you. It's such a joy. You speak with such clarity, and it just really moves the conversation forward. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for joining and listening to our chai combos.
We're going to be picking up once again in 2 weeks on another Everyday Equity, and we'll see you then.